This is my Triumph Herald, my glimpse back to the 60s. However, as with anything nearly 60 years old, it isn't without its issues, as I found out at 11 PM on a dark 60-mile-an-hour blind corner. With no fuel getting to the carb, the fuel pump was the suspect. Seeing as I was in the fuel delivery area of the car, I decided it was time to swap out the old hoses and replace them with the new R9 fuel hoses. And of course I also needed the new fuel pump. However, this isn't the one to get if you have a 1300 Spitfire with a Mark IV engine, because it looks the same but it isn't. In fact, the arm is ever so slightly different, which I should show you later on. But getting into the video, here we are looking at the fuel pump, and then we look down below it and there's the inline fuel filter that I have, the old hose that I'm going to change going up to the fuel pump, and then all the way around the back of the engine up to the carb. I'm also going to be replacing that fuel hose because, as you shall see later on, they're a little bit cracked. I found these things online, these little pincer things, and they stop the fuel flowing through the hoses when you take them off. Undoing that fuel hose there from the inline fuel filter up to the pump from the tank, and there we go, it comes off and no fuel came out. Next thing is to take that hose off of the other side of the pump, and I also then remembered that I haven't put any gloves on, and then just undid that with the flathead and took that off. Bit of fuel in there, probably should have used a pinch, but I didn't. And then off the other side where the carb is, and then get that out the way. That one wasn't in too bad condition, but it was still worth changing it for the better upgraded hoses. And there is the two bolts we need to take off for the fuel pump. They were both 13mm, and I ended up using that one to break off that bolt. And then I couldn't fit it in behind the other one for the right hand side, so I ended up using my socket set with a small extension on it, just to give me enough space to get to it. Bit of a little wiggle to get it off, and there it is. So I got that one out, and as you can see, it's got like a curvy bit on the arm there, coming straight out of the back of the pump, whereas the new one didn't, which was a bit of an issue, and therefore it wouldn't fit. That was one of the washers that came off from the right hand side, and there is a little shot there of the gasket there, and the bolts that I took the nuts off of. Here I am just measuring up the right size of the new hoses, just taking the old ones side by side, and then I will cut that off. There you go, there I am cutting that off with a Stanley, and that measured up. Just swap the Jubilee clips round and they're good to go then. If you struggle a little bit to get them on, what I have done before is put a little bit of fairy liquid on the outside of the actual nipple piece itself, not on the hose, but within the nipple piece itself. It just allows it to slide over, and I don't think that'll cause any issues. I'm not a mechanic, I'm not a professional, so it's worth just saying that. So there we go, putting that one on. I was going to move it up a little bit so it's out of the way, I don't lose it in the engine bay. This is the Pride one that I got from RimmerBros, but it's not quite the same. It looks very, very similar, apart from the screw on the top, and then it's got a clasp underneath. But the actual arm itself is different. You can't see it from that angle. I'm not sure if I've realised it yet in the video. The one on the top doesn't poke out. The one on the bottom does have a curvy pokey out bit as it comes out of the pump, and that meant that it wasn't going to fit, so I have sent that one back. Taking the old one out, and then I put the new one in. Yeah, I still haven't noticed it by this point. So new fuel pump going in now, but obviously that's the one that doesn't actually fit, which I then realised. There you go, there's the new fuel hose going down the back from the carb down to where the pump should be, and then it will then go onto that hose there. So then a few days later I got the pump that I needed, and it came with two gaskets, so I put those on after taking the old one off. And then this is the one that is new one, and it's got the curve on the back, instead of the Pride one that doesn't, even though it's got the same product code. And then what I kind of did was tilted it right up towards me, because the lever had to go into the engine above the cam. And the cam was right at the top of its travel, so I had to kind of put it right back towards me and then put it in, and it fit. Then it was time to put the nuts back on and tighten them up. And then it was time to put the hose back on again. There you go, there's me just putting a bit of fairy liquid on the outside just to make it a bit easier as it wasn't going on. Then obviously it was time to just tighten that up. Off comes the clamp thing, and then the hose goes on. And then time to plug the battery back on, and then it's trying to start the car up. But as you can see, it really wasn't having any of it. I kept cranking, and then I had a bit of an issue where this little piece fell off, and then the ignition barrel kept trying to go back in behind the dashboard, so it was just a palaver. I then had a look, and there was no fuel coming through the hose up to the carb. Saw a little air bubble in the fuel filter, and therefore gave it a suck, and then it soon started coming through. I think it might have been airlock, because there was no fuel at the top of the hose, and I sucked it and it went everywhere all over me. Well, let's give it another go. Ooh, don't want to lose that in there. Tried starting up again and it wasn't happening. It just wouldn't go. I don't know why it wouldn't go. But as soon as I turned the camera off, there you go, it was going. And what I did differently, I took 2 capfuls of fuel and put it straight into the carb. And then the car started, so I think it does need a little bit of a helping hand to get started up after not being started for a while.